Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Network. We have all kinds of stuff to talk about tonight. We have a hearing into rising anti-Semitism on campuses across the United States. We have the New World Order, but not the New World Order that you think you know. We have a different take on it. We have escalation in Ukraine, growing calls for Ukraine to use U.S. and U.K. weapons inside Russian territory, and a reaction from the Russian side to that. We'll tell you what that is. We have a Tesla, self-driving Tesla, that very nearly ran into a train. We have the full video of that. And we have Donald Trump in the Bronx coming up right after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, let's go to that rally with Donald Trump in the Bronx, where he is tonight trying to make inroads with Hispanic and black voters, where many say the Democrats take those votes for granted.
I've come tonight to talk about solving problems. The simple fact is Joe Biden is not getting the job done for the Bronx. He's not getting the job done for New York, and he's not getting the job done for America. He is incompetent, ladies and gentlemen. He is grossly incompetent. I will get the job done as I did for 4 years, and I will get it done fast. And remember this, if a New Yorker can't save this country, no one can. No one can. Get me the snake, please. The snake. Thank you, everybody. What a crowd. This is something. You know, we wanted to keep it small because who knew? This is like a love fest. Love fest. It's a love fest. We love you. Thank you, darling. Thank you. Wow. Who said we're not going to win New York? We're going to win New York so bad. You know, if we win New York, we win the whole thing. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? We take back our country and we'll do a job like nobody's ever done before. And what we did for 4 years was incredible, but we also learned a lot. We're going to get in there very fast with the right people, great people, people that are tested and true. Years ago, there was an ice skating rink, the Wallman Rink in the middle of Central Park. You know that story? That had been under construction for more than 10 years. They couldn't get it open. It was a renovation. They couldn't get it done. Mayor Koch was at his wits' ends. They just couldn't get it finished. They couldn't get it built. They couldn't get it open. People wanted to skate before their children turned old. Almost $20 million was spent over a long period of time. It was an embarrassment to the city. Every day they'd be laying the copper pipe, and every night that same pipe would be stolen. And then they'd start all over again the next day, and it would be stolen. This went on weeks and weeks and months and months. They poured the concrete in small patches in wrong directions and at different heights. And they took their advice from a refrigerator company from Miami, where it's 95 degrees out. It was a total mess. They just didn't know what they were doing. And I saw this, and I wanted my children to be able to ice skate before. They didn't care about ice skating. I looked down on the rink, and I said, what is going on? Years and years. So I volunteered, and I took over the project and did a good job. And when I took it over, I said that if it costs more than $2 million, I would pay for it, the entire amount. But it cost far less. The first thing I did was call the Montreal Canadiens hockey team in Canada, right? Isn't that better than a refrigerator company from Miami? They didn't know what we were talking about. But the Montreal Canadiens knew, and they were really nice. I'll never forget how nice they were. And they told me that you don't want to use copper tubing and gas because the gas is very delicate and it leaks. It's very fragile. It just doesn't work. You want to use rubber hose. I said, I like that. That's a lot cheaper. Water and salt. The salt makes it so the water doesn't freeze. It's called brine. And you're going to put that under the concrete. You're going to pour the concrete over the top. It's going to be great. It's going to work. Not going to leak. It's cheaper, faster. And it works all the time. And when we opened, there were no leaks. There were no problems whatsoever. Anyway, I started the project, laid the rubber hose, mixed the water and the salt beautifully together. I was down there when they were doing it. I said, you got to do it right. And covered the entire rink with concrete in 4, literally, you had to see this scene, concrete trucks operated by the Teamsters. Do we have any Teamsters here? Oh. Oh, you got to make sure that O'Brien, he's a good man. He endorses Trump. I think he's going to, actually. But the Teamsters, it stretched all the way. You had trucks stretching all the way from the Wallman Rink, which was, let's say, at 60th Street, all the way back to Harlem. One contiguous pour. It was a day and a half of pouring concrete. One contiguous, a giant surface. As you know, the rink was completed in just 3 months for far less than the $2 million projected. The biggest expense was actually the demolition. That is the demolishing of everything that was built so incorrectly, so badly over a 10-year period. The biggest cost was demolition, taking it all down and starting all over. We opened with a ceremony with all Olympic gold medal winners, including the great Peggy Fleming, Dorothy Hamill, Scott Hamilton, and all of the others. Every one of them was there. It was a beautiful night, beautiful weather. I'll never forget the evening. It was one of the most beautiful. My parents were there. Now they're looking down on us. They say, wow, that's my son. Can you imagine? That's my son. Can you imagine? He's being tried in a court with a crooked judge. Can you believe this? Can you believe it? And highly conflicted judge at that. But everybody was there, and it was really something to behold. It was an incredible experience and one of the great experiences of my life in New York. We opened it. It's been successful and successful ever since. What a great, great experience. It was beautiful. And, you know, a lot of it's common sense. You'd like to say the Republican Party is the party of common sense. You don't go to Miami when you want to make ice. You go to Canada when you want to make ice, right? Or you could go right down the road in the Bronx to Ferry Point, right? Everybody know about Ferry Point. It was another disaster, a development where the city had spent over 29 years, almost $300 million trying to develop it into a luxury golf resort, anything. They'll take anything. They were spending money. You know, trucks were going here, dumping, getting filled up, moving it here, dumping, getting filled up with the same stuff. This went on for years, back and forth, the same stuff. They were feather bedding. They were doing lots of bad things. But really, they didn't know how to get it done. They had no idea how much money they were spending. And when asked how much they spent, they said, we just don't know. This has been going on for years, decades. They were unable to do it. And at the time, the mayor, Michael Bloomberg, said, no, it's all right. It's okay. Now, Michael Bloomberg was the mayor, and he called me. He said, I have to get this done before I finish my term. It was very important to him. He was embarrassed by it. Everybody was embarrassed. It was Mayor Koch. It went through a lot of different mayors. Almost 30 years, remember that. And he said, in all fairness, he said, I want to get this done, and you're the one that can do it. You're the only one that can do it. And I said, and I will do it. I will get it done. And we got it done before he finished his term, which was great. But there were no other bidders to my knowledge. And I took over the project, spending only my money to build it. And I called all of the contractors together. These were tough people. These were tough, hard people. Many of you are probably contractors on that site. And I said, look, fellas, you guys have made a fortune on this thing for years and years against the city. It's time we get together and build it. Let's get it built. Let's do it right. And let's get the hell out of here. We owe it to the city. And they worked so hard, the roughest, toughest contractors in New York. They had spirit like you've never seen before. And it was magnificently designed by the great Jack Nicklaus, who told me, I don't want to make any more money. They paid me enough. Everybody get paid a fortune. Jack said, I don't want money. I just want to see it get built for the people of New York. And that's what we did. But everybody, just like Jack, they said very similar things. These guys were rough and tough, and they made a lot of money, but you'd think they'd want to make more, but they didn't. They just wanted to get it built. And in just a little more than a year, so this was going on for 30 years, including, think of it, just a magnificent thing to watch. You had to watch these people working, just the opposite of what took place for the first 29 years. But we had a magnificent world-class golf course that many of you have played now. And it's rated as one of the best public courses in the country. And then a short while later, we built a beautiful clubhouse, one of the prettiest I've seen, built it, completed. The project was absolutely beautiful. It opened to great fanfare and great, great success. And do you want to hear the end result, though? Should I? Should I go off teleprompter and tell you the end result? You think Biden goes off teleprompter? I don't think so. He's no good on teleprompter. No, but okay, so I did this beautiful job. And then we had a dispute over January 6th. We had a dispute. And they said, January 6th, we want to terminate his agreement with the city. I had a long-term agreement with the city. And they sent me a notice of termination. I said, wait a minute. I just spent $25 million building it, built this magnificent clubhouse. It's in full operation. It took you 29 years. You were spending hundreds of millions of dollars. You couldn't get it done. And the neighborhood came to court totally for me. The Bronx neighborhood. It's in the Bronx. It's on the East River in the Bronx. And we went to court. The city sued to break my agreement that they had just made. And I had done such a great job for them. And it was accolades everywhere. Golf Magazine, all of the big magazines were saying, what a great job. They terminated my agreement, and I went to court. And I will tell you, I had a very good experience. We had a Supreme Court justice named Deborah James. And I have to give her credit. I didn't know her. Never met her. Deborah James, a African-American woman who came to my defense. We explained it, and the city explained it. They said, we want to terminate it. They had no reason. And we said what we just said. And she looked at them, and she said, in effect, how dare you? This man came in. He put up his own money. He did an incredible job. You were building it for 29 years. How dare you ask for this to be terminated? How unfair is that? Deborah James, a great Supreme Court justice. That's all I can tell you. And we won the case. But it's not easy doing business in New York, I'll tell you. Not easy. So I just appreciated that. I had to tell that story. And as you know, then I renovated Grand Central Terminal. I built the Grand Hyatt Hotel on 42nd Street and Park Avenue. And as part of that, I renovated the beautiful Grand Central Terminal, did a really good job of that. And then I was very much responsible for the construction of the Jacob Javits Convention Center, where Hillary Clinton was going to have her big evening. That was not good. Remember? We had the glass ceiling. You know, we built glass ceiling. She said, we're going to break the glass ceiling. It didn't work out. You know, I'll tell you a little secret that I don't think I've ever... I hated the concept. I said we have to get on with our country. We have to win against Russia. We have to win against China, North Korea, all the different countries we're at loggerheads with. But as long as you have a smart president, you're going to win those battles. We're winning all those battles, even with the fake Russia scam, which made it harder. But you hated that. And then you see what they want to do to us, to me, to us. And they come along... and they don't mind because Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of our country, has no sense, doesn't know what he's doing, grossly incompetent, and our country's going to hell, but we're going to turn it around. We're going to turn it around fast. Because above all else, and I say this and I believe this on New Yorkers, you are different. You do know that. You know that when I called for this rally, we said... let's just have a meeting. Don't call it a rally. And so many people showed up. I said, like it or not, this is a rally. This is as far as the eye can see. You have to see the lines outside. They're going for miles. But when we saw it and we saw the love, because I called up this morning, do the people like me or do they hate me? They said, they don't like you, sir. They love you. I said, oh, thank you. So I appreciate it. And I love you, too. But above all else, boy, look at all the cameras back there. That's amazing. That's the fake news. Yeah. You know, they'll say tonight, Donald Trump spoke to a very small crowd of people in the Bronx. It was a very hostile crowd, very hostile. They hated him very much. No, sometimes they're okay. You know, I agreed to do a debate with crooked Joe Biden on CNN with fake Tapper. And I think they'll be fair. Does anybody think they'll be fair? I might. That's all right. When they said, here's your story, you can have a debate on CNN with fake Tapper as the primary host. And I said, I'll do it. Because you know what they thought is you'd say CNN and they'd say various people on the show, various anchors, and, you know, headed up by fake Tapper. And they thought I was going to reject it. I don't want to do it. Then Biden would say, I offered to debate, but he wouldn't do it. So they said, we want to have a debate. I'll take it. Well, we haven't even told you what the debate is all about. Then they said, today, they said, we'd like to set up tables so you sit down. I said, I don't want to sit down for a debate. Let's go. At some point, so we're not sitting down. We're going to be standing up for the debate. And here's what you know. If crooked Joe Biden makes it through the debate, which I think he will, they're going to say it was one of the great debate performances in history. One of the greatest debate performances. But there they are. And we're on every network tonight. I don't know what's going on. We're on Fox. We're on all of them. So have a lot of fun, but we're on all of them. So they understood. They understood before anyone how big this would be. And you got to see what's back there coming in. Thank you. Thank you. But above all, New Yorkers have something called common sense, and we do have common sense. An old-fashioned American common sense is exactly what I intend to bring back to the White House, just like we had for 4 years. You know, we had 4 of the greatest years in the history of our country. We rebuilt the military, we cut taxes, the biggest tax cut in history, the biggest regulation cut in history. We defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS, and we did it in about 1/100th the time. They said it would take 4 to 5 years. It took me like 2 months, right? Because we have an incredible military, and we're not allowed to show. They had Afghanistan, the worst pullout, the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. It's probably the reason, a piece of it, why Russia went into Ukraine. They said, these people are incompetent, we'll go in. So Russia going into Ukraine would have never happened. None of this stuff that you see would have happened. Israel would have never happened, the attack on October 7th, and you wouldn't have had inflation. As soon as I get back into the Oval Office, I am going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call your mayor and your governor, and I'm going to say, this is President Trump, and I want to come back and help. Look, you have a Democrat governor, you have a Democrat mayor, and we are going to work with them, and we're going to get this state and this city at a level that it's never seen before, frankly. I think we can do that, too. We're going to be helping them a lot, much more than anybody would expect. It doesn't matter whether they're Democrats or Republicans, because this is about our city and our country, and it's really about the people. And in this case, the people of New York City, New York State. We're going to make you very, very happy. And Biden can't do it. He doesn't know he's alive. You know, see all the stairs here? Stair, 2 of them behind me, 1 in the middle. When he's finished with his 2.5 minute, you know, do you ever watch his speech? They last for about 1.5 minutes. When he's finished with his speech, he can never find the stairs. He can never find the stairs. And when he does, it's not a pretty picture either. Thank goodness for Secret Service. They come up and they guide them all. No, this is not what we need. When you see President Xi of China, when you see Kim Jong-un of North Korea, when you see Putin, and you see all of these people, they're at the top of their game, whether you like it or not, and they can't believe that this has happened to the United States. We have lost respect all over the world. We were the most respected country in the world 4 years ago. We were respected more than our country was ever respected 4 years ago, and now we're being laughed at. We're like a joke, and that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. We're going to do whatever it takes to fix our roads, bridges, and highways.
Okay, so we'll pull out of that at that point. You know, he's painting a picture of the American dream in his own way. And when I hear him say things like October 7th would never have happened, Russia going into Ukraine never would have happened, I tend to believe him. I think back to the Reagan era and the Jimmy Carter era. I see what's going on today, and it reminds me so much of what I lived through back in those times when I was much, much younger. But there was a lesson taught at that time. Carter was an extremely weak president, seen as weak. When he was in the White House, we had the Iran hostage crisis. What do we have right now? A weak president. What do we have? a hostage crisis. This one's far worse in a way because the media doesn't really even talk much about the hostages, some of them Americans, still being held. It's worse because this time the world is on the edge of a global kinetic war, maybe even nuclear war. At least back in the 70s, when Carter was president, it didn't take us to the brink of nuclear war, but it certainly diminished the status of the United States of America. And it was an election that was fought largely on that issue, on that problem between Carter and Ronald Reagan. Reagan, elected, seen as a strong leader, and as he was being inaugurated, the hostages were released by Iran. Today, we have a world on the edge. We have Iran on the rise. We have the BRICS nations forming. We have an alternative economic system being embraced by half the world to challenge the United States, the West, the European Union. It's destabilizing everything. We talk about the New World Order. I hear it all the time. And I think that what I'm witnessing is something that most people are not recognizing. I think that you're all being distracted. I think, or maybe not everyone, but a lot of people are being distracted, not seeing the rise of the New World Order for what it really is when it is right in front of your face. The New World Order is not being simply orchestrated by the World Economic Forum, which doesn't really have any legislative authority globally. The WEF is a policy think tank. It's the Davos forum that they hold annually is a place where all the movers and the shakers and the elites go to discuss policy ideas. Then they take these ideas back home where they hold power and they try to bring those policies forward at the national level. But the WEF itself does not have the authority. They just have influence. What are we really seeing? What is the New World Order really? It is what we've been talking about here for a long time now. It is the new multipolar geopolitical reality. The New World Order is the rise of the BRICS nations. It's the rise of Russia, Brazil, India, China, North Korea, Iran, some of the other Arab nations, in direct opposition to the West, capitalism, at least the capitalism that we've come to know it. Here's the irony in it all. The BRICS nations, while I think people on the political left find what is going on over there somewhat attractive, here's the irony. In my view, the BRICS nations are really just embracing their own version of capitalism. They might be trying to create a kinder, gentler capitalism, maybe inject some socialism into it, but it's capitalism nonetheless, because the economic systems are what they are. I think we need to be aware that what the New World Order really is right now is it's a rejigging, a reset, a great reset globally. With the rise of nations against the West. That's really what is happening. There's real power there. And it is a huge threat to our standard of living, our way of life. We need to find a way to to live with this and work with other countries, in my view. And to do that, you're still going to need a very strong leader. You're going to need a president who can carry the nation forward into the future with pride, national pride. Because if you do get sort of a globalist reality, it's not going to be what people think. You're all being kind of, we're all, not just you, but we're all being kind of deceived, I think, in a way. The New World Order, the new global order, is not being orchestrated by the West so much. There are people who are working from the inside to destabilize and reshape the world. And I think that maybe they're working toward this goal, but really it's the rise of these other nations that will determine what the new geopolitical reality will be, what the new world order is really going to look like. I'm not the only one who sees it this way. I think some people are finally beginning to open the other eye. I keep saying to everyone, "Are you awake? Are you sure?" Only maybe one eye open. Maybe time to open the other one as well. Wake up. Okay, get with the program. Well, maybe not get with the program, but be aware of it anyway. Here's Eric Stakelback on TBN. He talks about this in very much the same way that I'm discussing it right here. Maybe he will be able to convey this to you in a clearer way. Maybe he's more articulate than I am. He's a pretty sharp guy. I'm going to let him speak for a moment. Eric Stakelback.
Broader Middle East and around the world. We want to get you up to speed on it. We haven't talked much recently about Russia. Well, today, folks, that is the main topic of our conversation. Not Russia, Ukraine, Russia and Israel. And Russia more broadly, and it's talk of a new world order. Now, when you think of the new world order, you think of Davos and the World Economic Forum, and we just saw their massive conference in Davos last week with the global elites, the Klaus Schwabs, the Great Reset crowd, who we have covered extensively here in The Watchmen. I even hosted an entire 1-hour special about the Great Reset just last year. But that's what you usually think when you hear talk of the NWO, the New World Order. But in this case, Russia, along with North Korea and the Iranian regime and China have talked about it as well. They're talking about a new world order as well, but not from that globalist World Economic Forum perspective. They're talking about a new world order, I guess you would say, that leans to the East, to the Middle East, to the Far East, to Asia, and abandons the Western world order, the Western-led, the U.S.-led world order that we've seen since World War II. That when they talk about a new world order, that's what they're talking about. A de-emphasis, a weakening of the West, and in particular the United States. That's their version of a new world order. Now, I have called Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea the Gathering Storm Coalition. It's a gathering storm of nations against the West and against Israel as well. We want to break down these latest comments from the Putin regime in Russia about a new world order, number one, in tandem with North Korea, a joint statement, a visit planned to North Korea by Vladimir Putin very soon. I want to break that down, the broader ramifications of that, but also some Russian tension, serious tension over the weekend with Israel.
Okay, so I'll just pull out of it there. You can go and check out Eric's work and learn more from him about that perspective on that version or interpretation of what a new world order is or what it will look like in the future. I think there's real merit in that perspective. And I've been looking at it that way for quite a while. I don't think that the new world order will be dictated by the West as much as people are being told and directed through information warfare, really, and propaganda to to look within, always look at the United States, blame everything on the U.S., expect everything from the U.S. The U.S. controls everything. They're going to shape the future. They're responsible for the new world order, the world economic. No, man, there are other forces in play here. There's a lot of influence within the United States and Canada and Mexico and the European Union that is pushing the West toward this new world order. But it is not just coming from the West. Look at what's going on. There's a major assault underway against Western dominance, against U.S. dominance, economically, militarily, socially, culturally, on the religious front. And as soon as Biden was elected, everything went straight down the tubes. Because that was the opportunity. You have a weak president in the White House. So competing nations take advantage of that. And they'll push it. And they are. All the way and beyond. All this going on while Trump, seeking re-election, is under constant attack. Lawfare, media attacks, it just goes on and on. And I'll tell you this, Dan Bongino, political commentator, friend of Trump, just went ballistic over the news that lethal force had been authorized back when the raid on Mar-a-Lago took place over the classified documents issue. Here's Dan Bongino reacting to the news this week that came out, confirming that the use of lethal force had been authorized potentially against a former president of the United States.
It's not a standard raid. It was an unprecedented raid on a Secret Service protected compound on a former president who was running for president or known to be running for president again. These people in the government work for us. They don't have Avenger-like powers. They have powers we grant to them through the Constitution and the United States Code because we operate on consent of the governed. They are not allowed to do whatever they want, whenever they want. And any lawyer, and I use lawyer in air quotes because these people are like Wikipedia lawyers. They don't know shit about anything. Any lawyer on Twitter, agent or anything else, suggesting to you that, oh, listen, this was just a standard black and white thing, immediately unfollow. They have no idea what they're talking about. Folks, there is nothing about this that was standard. The entire United States government, when it comes to blue on blue, force situations, Congress people, senators, the president of the United States operates in a gray area that's constantly litigated. Anyone telling you it's a standard plan, and this was a standard ops plan to discuss use of force options at freaking Mar-a-Lago with the former president, I'm sorry, is a freaking moron. And you should never listen to anything they say again. I am not kidding. This was not SOP. Question.
Not business as usual. That much is certain. Politics has certainly changed a lot. I've never seen it so hot. It is a blood sport, as I've been saying over the last few nights. It's a blood sport, and They can taste blood, they smell the blood, and yet Trump just marches on, soldiers on, day after day, night after night. Let's take a little break. We're getting into the warmer weather. It's election season, and as much as things are hot right now, I guarantee you they're going to get scalding hot as the summer carries on.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Of course, nothing has been more divisive than this issue in the Middle East. The October 7th attack, the response, the Israeli military operation, the war in Gaza, the arrest warrants from the ICC for Netanyahu and the leaders of Hamas, and Putin, for that matter, and the war in Ukraine, but nothing more divisive than this situation between Israel and Palestine. And we've seen that bleed over into domestic politics. We've seen the war take on a particular shape here in North America on university campuses, haven't we? Yes, we have, especially over the past month. Today, hearing held, House Committee on Education and the Workforce had the heads of universities show up to talk about accountability. This is how everything began today with the hearings there. I think there's value in listening to the opening statement. Oh, hang on a second. Here we go.
In Ernest Hemingway's novel, Sun Also Rises, two characters are discussing bankruptcy. How did you go bankrupt? Asked Bill. Two ways. Two ways, Mike responds. Gradually, then suddenly. No three words better apply to the decline in post-secondary education that has transpired. Gradually, then suddenly. These three little words paved the road that led to today's hearing. Over the course of years, decades even, universities gradually nurtured a campus culture of radicalism in which anti-Semitism grew and became tolerated by administrators. The committee's been steadfast in its dedication to attacking the roots of anti-Semitic hatred, including anti-Israel DEI bureaucracies and questionable foreign funding. Then suddenly, over the course of weeks, days even, universities burst into anti-Semitic chaos. October 7 ignited a powder keg of pro-terror campus fervor, a shocking spectacle for the American public. Suddenly, the radicalized zealots found a cause and group that they could graft their hate onto. Somehow, Jews fit neatly into DEI's oppression matrix, thereby justifying anti-Semitism. In the morning following October 7, radicalized students have harassed, assaulted, and intimidated their Jewish peers. These anti-Semitic protests have led to hijacking buildings, erecting unlawful encampments, disrupting classrooms, and canceling commencements. They've been the principal agents of anti-Jewish harassment and violence and have made an absolute mockery of so-called university leaders. That's why the committee is yet again calling for accountability from those in charge of universities. Today, with Mr. Michael Schill of Northwestern University, Dr. Gene Block of UCLA, and Dr. Jonathan Holloway of Rutgers University. Each of you should be ashamed of your decisions that allowed anti-Semitic encampments to endanger Jewish students. Mr. Schill and Dr. Holloway, you should be doubly ashamed for capitulating to the anti-Semitic rule breakers. Our job today is first and foremost to hold those who are supposed to be in charge to account. Dr. Gene Block, you will testify to the horrific violent events that unfolded at UCLA, leading to 243 arrests. You cleared the encampment only after a violent riot erupted. For days, you stood by as Jews were assaulted and the illegal checkpoints blocked access to campus in broad daylight. Your actions were too little, too late. Second, the committee will highlight the concessions universities doled out to rule breakers. Dr. Holloway, you accepted 8 of the 10 encampment demands, including an egregious amnesty deal to Rutgers students and faculty involved in the encampment. I'd like to know what sort of message you think that sends to your Jewish students. Mr. Schill, you cut a disgraceful deal with the encampment that prompted 7 Jewish members of your own anti-Semitism advisory committee to resign in protest. You and President Holloway struck deals that guaranteed jobs and admissions to Palestinians in apparent violation of federal anti-discrimination laws. I'd like to know how you think your quotas comply with the Civil Rights Act. Those who are in charge of universities who negotiate with pro-terror protesters are not doing their jobs. Taxpayer dollars have no business funding universities without principles that align with the principles of this country. Each of you refused to enforce your own rules, preserve campus safety, and protect Jewish students. Finally, I want to make one thing clear. The purpose of these hearings is not to enact right-wing cancel culture as purported by the left. The purpose is to end anti-Semitic violence and harassment on campus. Full stop. Hearings with college presidents are meant to help guide post-secondary education policies going forward that meet the needs and respect the rights of all students. We will certainly keep your answers to our questions in mind.
Okay, so this kind of goes back to my previous comment about Ronald Reagan. You know, protesting is one thing. Seizing property, occupying a university grounds, and then restricting access to certain people, that crosses the line into something entirely different. When Ronald Reagan was president, there was a dispute with air traffic controllers. In a way, the air traffic controllers who wanted to go on strike, they were going to hold the whole country hostage in a way because, or at least hold all the airports hostage in order to get what they wanted through their collective bargaining rights. And Reagan fired them all. I mean, I'm all for labor relations and collective bargaining, but what he showed is courage and a spine. And he also had a policy of never negotiating with terrorists. Because as soon as you negotiate with terrorists, you embolden them and you encourage more terrorism. Because if terrorists take hostages and you negotiate with them and they get what they want, then they figure out that taking people hostage works in order for them to achieve their political goals or whatever other goals they might want, maybe even just ransom. Take hostages, get what you want. Reagan said, no, we do not negotiate with terrorists. What I found was after that policy was firmly entrenched within the Reagan administration and it flowed forward even into the Bush administration, that policy, I think, was wise. Not everything they did was wise when it came to foreign policy, but on that particular front, I agree. You don't negotiate with terrorists because they are not acting in good faith when they're holding the lives of innocent people over your head in order to get what they want. You're being coerced. That's not a negotiation. That's blackmail. When protesters seize, and I'm editorializing here, but when they seize a university or a college grounds, and they tell certain people, including some journalists, as we've seen directly here on this program, they restrict access and say, you're not allowed to go in there, you can't go there, even though they have no right, no legal right to prevent people from going there at all. They've crossed the line. It's a problem. And Biden, being the weak president that he is, You know, it's all really, honestly, folks, it's flowing from that. So, and as a result of it's flowing from Biden right now, but it started a long time ago with the schools, with the post-secondary institutions that have been teaching critical race theory, that have been teaching anti-colonialism, that have been teaching all kinds of things, revisionist history, in order to undermine national pride, to make people ashamed of their country, of who they are, what they are, where they came from. It's self-flagellation. There's no future for a country if people don't have some self-pride and pride in their nation. That needs to be restored. To some degree, I think that is what Trump is really offering people in his speech tonight in the Bronx, as he's reaching out to Hispanic and black voters and, I'd say, even the working class. Absolutely. Now, these administrators at these universities also very weak in enforcing this. And for me, it wouldn't matter if it's pro-Palestinians or any other issue. Doesn't matter who the protesters are. Protest all you want, but you seize property. You occupy space that you have no right to occupy. And you can be there, but you prevent other people from having access to it and enjoying it. Taxpayer-funded facilities. You know, if you're a taxpayer, you have as much right to be there as anybody, any other member of the public. And if you're a student, then you have, you know, additional rights to go into classrooms and enjoy what is rightfully yours. They are in no position to restrict that access or the enjoyment or use of that property or any other service that you might avail yourself of while you're there. These university administrators acknowledged today, at least the chancellor for UCLA certainly did. He said today that they should have acted much faster to remove these illegal encampments because these protesters went beyond protesting. They were then, and I don't want to speak, I don't want to put words in his mouth. You'll hear from him in a moment. But basically, they are occupying space. They are trespassing and restricting the rights illegally of other people, infringing on other people's rights. He said today that they should have acted much more quickly than they did to address all of this. So he was testifying today in front of this committee of Congress, Chancellor Gene Block. He was under fire. More than 100 students at UCLA are being investigated now for allegations of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia since the October 7th attack that led to the war in Gaza. So Gene Block told the committee today, and the presidents of Northwestern and Rutgers universities, that, as I say, they should have moved in and dealt with this much more quickly, this pro-Palestinian encampment that drew hundreds of people to the campus earlier this month. And then because it was allowed to fester for so long, it eventually broke out into, a violent clash between protesters, counter-protesters, police. It turned into a mess. And we've seen at some of these campuses vandalism. Huge amounts of graffiti, damage, smashed windows, boarded up windows, libraries trashed. It's shameful. What good purpose does that kind of vandalism serve? That's not protesting. That is not protesting. And as a result of all of that, what did the university administrators do? They cut deals. They negotiated with them and gave them what they want. It's the wrong approach. You should not reward behavior like that. On the contrary, protest, yes. Protest till you're blue in the face. And then, yes, come out and you can talk to people who are being reasonable and engaging in civil protest. But you take it beyond civil protest into malicious disobedience and vandalism and threatening behavior that is really designed to terrorize people in a way. No, not in a way, definitely. And then it turns into violence. No, that's an uprising. And that's not acceptable. Especially in a democratic society where it's not needed. That's what democracy is for. You work through the democratic process. You don't have to engage in violent behavior. But don't reward it. Okay, let's go to this clip now of the chancellor from UCLA. Let me get it up on the screen here for you. Gene Block. Here's his opening address to the committee.
You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Good morning, Chairwoman Fox, Ranking Member Scott, and members of the committee. My name is Gene Block, and I'm the Chancellor at UCLA. Thank you for inviting me here today. Let me start by affirming that all forms of discrimination, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, are antithetical to UCLA's values and corrosive to our culture. I wish I could say that our campus has been immune to the disturbing rise of anti-Semitism across our country since October 7th. Sadly, that's not the case. What I can say, and what I'll address today, is how we've been confronting and will continue to confront this challenge. Last summer, I announced my intent to retire this July after leading UCLA for 17 years. These are my final months of chancellor of this distinguished institution. While I'm saddened by the recent turmoil on our campus, I'm also proud of our legacy as a university deeply committed to the peaceful expression of differing viewpoints. To have a functioning democracy, we must be able to speak freely about the most consequential events of the day. As a public university, UCLA is subject to a dual legal mandate: the First Amendment obligation to protect free speech on campus, and the obligation under federal laws to protect students from discrimination and harassment. This balance is often difficult to achieve, and it has been especially difficult since October 7th. I'm fully aware that many of our Jewish students have had to confront rhetoric and images on campus that any reasonable person would find repugnant. Trust me, I understand their pain. I've lived it myself. As a Jewish kid growing up in the Catskill region of New York with relatives who were Holocaust survivors and victims. As the former provost at the University of Virginia watching news coverage of neo-Nazis rioting outside the synagogue in Charlottesville where my children were called to the Torah. As the chancellor of UCLA, where an art show depicted me with exaggerated facial features that were reminiscent of caricatures of Jews during the Nazi era. As we all know, being an American means sometimes being asked to tolerate offensive and even hateful speech protected by our Constitution. But there are limits. At UCLA, we draw the line when speech crosses into intimidation, threats, and harassment of our community. UCLA has a proud history of peaceful protest. Before October 7th, we successfully navigated campus protests using strategies recommended by the University of California. But on April 25th, as a result of a conflict that spread across universities across the country, a protest sprang up at the center of our campus, testing the limits of our approach. We are part of the University of California system. We followed University of California policy guidelines that directs its 10 campuses to only use law enforcement to remove protesters when absolutely necessary to protect the physical safety of our community. Accordingly, the encampment remained. As the encampment grew to more than 500 protesters, some of whom were not even affiliated with UCLA, it disrupted normal access to some classes. On April 28th, I decided to remove the encampment after violence broke out between opposing demonstrators, and I asked for a security plan to do so. We gave the protesters written notice that the encampment was unlawful on April 30th and instructed them to disperse. But before the necessary police resources could be assembled, assailants attacked the encampment that evening. Tragically, it took several hours before law enforcement could quell the violence. On May 1st, with the support of the University of California's President Michael Drake, we provided protesters a final opportunity to leave. But when more than 200 protesters refused police orders, law enforcement removed the encampment that night. With the benefit of hindsight, we should have been prepared to immediately remove the encampment if and when the safety of our community was put at risk. We have since taken decisive action. I created a new Office of Campus Safety that reports directly to me. UCLA is conducting a thorough examination of our security processes. The University of California has also engaged independent law enforcement experts to initiate a review of the confrontation, including our planning and security protocols. Finally, we will hold accountable all those engaged in violence or violated our policies. No student should be threatened or excluded based on their beliefs or identity. While we'll always have to strive hard to meet this obligation, we must also maintain our commitment to academic freedom and free speech. The balance is central to UCLA's educational mission. It's not always easy to strike a perfect balance, but that must be our goal. Thank you again, and I'm looking forward to answering your questions.
Okay, so we'll just leave that there for tonight. Of course, the hearings went on for a long time, but that gives you a little taste of the struggle that is ongoing to find that balance between people's right to free speech, right to protest, and people's right to enjoy access to property, to continue to go to school, to not have their rights violated. It's a difficult thing to navigate. But the key, really, is to have a clear eye and to have strong leadership and the presence of mind to do what needs to be done at moments when emotions are running high. Keep your head screwed on straight and make the right decisions. That's why you need somebody strong leading a university. That's why you need someone strong leading your country.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We are going to get to this near-death experience for a person riding in a self-driving Tesla very soon. But first, a few other stories to touch on tonight. WestJet wants the federal government to bring in measures to lower ticket costs for travelers, but they say that somebody needs to pay for all of this. The CEO of WestJet, Alexis von Hoensbroek, says the federal government needs to review the fees added on top of tickets that pay for airport maintenance and projects. You see, they tack these fees onto your airline tickets for things like airport improvement fees. Every ticket apparently has a $35 charge approximately added to it for airport improvement fees. Then you have your sales taxes, federal and provincial. You have a bunch of other fees as well. And with rising ticket costs, which are the result of inflation, plus the cost of managing the debt for airports after the pandemic, and we've seen airports accumulate billions of dollars in debt since the pandemic because, of course, people were not flying. The numbers are just not working for the airlines or for the airports either. So the federal government is being asked to take a closer look at that by WestJet in Canada. And if they don't get it straightened out, looks like the airline industry could be in for a rough ride. People are only going to pay so much for tickets, and somehow we need to address the debt still that has been accumulated as a result of the pandemic. And that's not the only industry wrestling with those kinds of debts. The fast food industry, the restaurant industry in general is struggling as well. Restaurants Canada, which represents over 30,000 restaurants coast to coast and restaurant-related businesses, says 51% of restaurants in Canada are losing money. So this organization says the number of restaurants that have been filing for bankruptcy has jumped 116% since 2022. They say that number is likely to grow if changes are not made. 83% of the organization's restaurant members, the organization's membership, took out loans during the pandemic, and only 20%, according to the organization, are in a position to be able to pay those loans back at the end of the year when they come due. That means that we could see a lot of restaurants go belly up. So Restaurants Canada is asking the federal government to reconsider its deadline and extend the payment deadline for 36 months, allowing restaurants to recover losses over a longer period of time and give them a little more breathing room, maybe to avoid having more of these restaurants shuttered. I can tell you that, shortly after the pandemic, I saw a lot of independent restaurants shut down, closed, gone forever. Not just restaurants either. A lot of small businesses around here were really hit hard, and a lot of them closed and have not reopened, and likely never will. It will take a long time for the economy really to truly recover on that front. There was such a huge transfer of wealth from small businesses, the average, middle class Canadian and U.S. citizen, to big corporate chains. Big fast food chains had a particular advantage over, with drive-through windows and such, had a big advantage during the pandemic over small independent mom and pop restaurant shops and all kinds of independent small retail outlets too. Big chain stores allowed to stay open while the little guys were all forced to shut down. During the pandemic, you saw massive increases in debt. A lot of business owners and individuals too took what they thought would be free money from the government in the form of just outright handouts and also loans, only to find out that a lot of this money, most of it in fact, has to eventually be paid back. And so now we're looking at still, even now, over half of all the restaurants in Canada who are members of this organization, this restaurant association, losing money. Look for more bankruptcies on the horizon and more closed restaurants if the federal government doesn't do something to address the terms of the loans that they handed out. Now, we've seen also cyber attacks going on nationally, internationally, and in Canada. London Drugs pharmacy chain, retail pharmacy chain, says cyber criminals that managed to break into its computer system and steal corporate files from their head office last month have released some of the data after the company refused to pay a ransom. The company is based in Richmond, British Columbia, and they've released a statement saying that the files may contain some employee information. They say it's deeply distressing. So the company says that it was unwilling and unable to pay the ransom to hackers that it describes as a sophisticated group of global cyber criminals. This is a growing problem, not just for big companies, but for governments as well. The company says there is no indication that any patient or customer information was compromised in the data breach. It forced London Drugs to shut down its stores all across Western Canada back on April 28th after they discovered that the system had been compromised. Currently, the company continues to review files that they say may have been stolen, and they are going to contact employees to tell them if they had any personal information that was revealed that might be of an issue. 79 stores across BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba were affected by this cyber attack, and they weren't able to reopen until May 7th, closed between April 28th and May 7th as a result of that attack. And that can throw a real monkey wrench into people's health care because, of course, you have a lot of people who need prescriptions renewed, critical medications. That actually can put people's lives at risk. What might seem like just a financial crime or a cyber crime is more than that. It's a crime that really can have a direct, real world, real life impact on people and their day-to-day lives. So that's not over yet. And a new study is out that says Meta, parent company of Facebook, of course, and Instagram, hasn't really seen any significant decline in its usage since banning news on its platform. It's taken a big hit, though, it's taken the wind out of the sails of especially legacy media. And even our organization here, we've been permanently banned on Facebook. And they've stolen, frankly, our intellectual property, our corporate branding, our everything, because we are set up as an actual company. I was set up as a company long before we even came back and reignited this news platform. But some local news outlets in some communities, just local like radio stations and things like that, they've lost 70-80% of their online audience where they were relying on Facebook and Meta social media platforms to get their messages out. So this paper by Media Ecosystem Observatory, which is a collaboration between McGill University and the University of Toronto, gives a glimpse into the effects of the Meta news ban. National news outlets lost about 64% of the engagement previously generated by users on their Facebook pages. That according to the results of their study. Local news outlets lost about 85% of their Facebook engagement. And some outlets have gone dark entirely, according to the study, saying that they're no longer getting the ad revenue being driven from Facebook to their sites. So it resulted in a massive hit to them financially. Isn't that interesting to see that in reality what's happened is some of the smaller, even mainstream legacy media outlets, that being local radio stations, for instance, and maybe local community newspapers, which had come to rely on exposure and reach through social media platforms, especially Facebook, are the ones who actually ended up taking the biggest hit. That is the unintended consequence of Justin Trudeau's social media news policy and the legislation that was passed that was designed to force the social media companies to pay fees to the legacy mainstream media. Facebook, Meta saying, no, don't want any part of it. You can't make us do that. We're not going to pay, so we're just not going to have any news on our platforms anymore. And that's had a huge negative impact on news, where Trudeau was telling us that this would improve news coverage and ensure or guarantee or at least help prop up journalism jobs across the country by making sure that money flowed back into the media ecosystem. And that has not been what happened at all. Quite the opposite. Now, some of this money is flowing back into the giant corporate media machine that the federal government actually controls in many respects now, in a much different way than when I was with the mainstream media. Now the federal government's just forking out money and paying them all off in unprecedented ways. But here you can see how government involvement often results in the exact opposite effect of what is intended. So that is the case here now. You have, and I predicted this from day one. I said, this will have unintended consequences. It's going to have a negative impact on social media and on the news industry or ecosystem as a result. And that is what we are seeing today. And that is what this study actually confirms. Now, I'll tell you what, let's take a little break here. When we come back, we'll get into this story about a self-driving Tesla that darn near killed its owner and occupant. Stay with me.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
All right, so let me just get this up on the screen here. This Tesla. I had it up here previously. I was ready to go, and then I kind of lost where I wanted to be with it. So we have this guy driving down the road in fully, full auto drive mode. And I mean, what could go wrong, right, with a self-driving car? Well, apparently quite a bit. Let me see if I can get you this here. I think I lost my spot. Well, how frustrating is that? Let me take another, just give me 30 seconds. You watch this and dream about exiling the Knights of Malta with Choosy, and I'll pick this up on the other side of this.
Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. We're going to exile those darn Knights of Malta. I swear we will. We're working on it, Choosy. We'll discuss it more in the days ahead. Looking to you for guidance, sir. Tesla owner. Driving down the road. Kind of misty, kind of foggy. He's in full self-driving mode. And the car fails to detect a moving train and stop on its own. So at the last second, this guy slams on the brakes. His name is Craig Doty II. And he slams on the brakes and just barely manages to miss the train. I'm going to run the video here in a sec. He actually accepts responsibility for this accident himself. He says he was the only one in the car, and it was like a single car event. And he says, yes, it was his fault, but he says he's actually blaming the car more than he does himself. In fact, I would say he saved himself, and he's darn lucky that he was able to respond in time to prevent this from happening. Let's take a look at this video. This is scary stuff. Now look at this. Here he goes. Oh my God, the car's not going to stop, man. Full self-driving mode, but he hit the brakes just at the last second. Dash cam footage. Let's watch it one more time. Here it goes. And you can see it's like misty, so I don't know if it's because the camera couldn't see what was going on because of the fog or mist in the air, or if it was some sort of a glitch in the system. Anyway you slice it, though, he is very lucky to be alive. Now, I've been saying for a long time that eventually, probably sooner rather than later, I think people will be prevented from driving. I think the government is probably going to pass laws that will prohibit human beings from getting behind the wheel of automobiles and trucks, because they will say that it is too dangerous, that self-driving cars are much safer. And so in order to save lives, and thousands of people every year do die in traffic accidents, I predict that the day is coming very soon when the government will at least try to prevent people from driving cars on their own. That will make me very sad because I enjoy driving. It's an experience. You get behind the wheel and you are in control. I feel much safer in a car that I'm controlling rather than a car that is being controlled by autonomous systems. And even these semi-autonomous driver assistance programs, I don't even really like them much. Lane keep assist, I don't even really like it. It has been useful at times for me. I've noticed prevented me from drifting over a line during a moment of brief inattention. But for the most part, I don't like it because if you get too close to the center line in on a multi-lane highway, the steering wheel shakes. I don't like the feel of it. I don't like anti-lock brakes myself. They serve a purpose. I don't like traction control. I really don't really care for it, especially in snow. I find that you don't have as much control in the snow when you have traction control on. It is useful. It prevents fishtailing, but it's designed, these systems are designed for people who don't really know how to drive, especially under emergency conditions. They don't know how to pump their brakes. They don't know how to steer in the opposite direction to prevent your car from fishtailing. They don't know how to pull donuts in the snow. It's one of the first things I learned how to do when I was learning how to drive up here in Canada. In fact, I kind of enjoyed going to a parking lot to learn how to control a car in the snow and pulling donuts. I don't recommend you do it. It's not really the proper thing to do. But but I know how to do it, and I'm not too bad at it. Drifting. If you can control the car, you don't always need these driver assist programs. I do like the video cameras that show vehicles in your blind spot where you can't see them in your mirror. I think those are very useful. I like that. But I don't like being out of control. I like being in control. That's just my personal preference. Don't like the feel of some of these anti-lock braking systems. I don't look forward to the future when it comes to self-driving cars. And we've just seen right here that sometimes that technology fails too. So having a human being behind the wheel as a backup in this case was, I guess, a good thing. Although it was only a single vehicle accident, it would have potentially caused a big problem with that train, maybe even a derailment if it had collided with the train at the railroad crossing. I like being in control. I like getting behind the wheel of a car with a lot of power too. I like the feel of it, but I also like economy cars. But nothing like getting behind the wheel of something with a lot of horsepower. And out of all the pony cars out there, the Mustangs, the Challengers, the Camaros, I like the Mustangs the best. And Ford has just come out with this incredible power machine. Supercar territory, baby. We are talking about the Ford GTD. This is the most powerful Ford Mustang ever produced. An incredible machine. It's kind of based off race technology, a racing Mustang, a GT3 Mustang that has over 700 horsepower. And you get this street version, which will soon go into production. Only about 800 to 1,000 of them will be produced over the next year. Pretty hefty price tag comes with it too. And it's going to have more horsepower than the race version, because the regulatory agency, body that regulates how much horsepower each race car is allowed to have, capped it at, like, I think 700 horsepower. This will have about 800. Check this thing out. The Ford Mustang GTD. It is going to be the most powerful, the most expensive Ford Mustang ever produced. Ford has unveiled it, and they are about to take their race car version, their GT3, hang on, I've got a problem here. I'll come back to that later on, maybe. I've got the wrong version of that up. Anyway, it's such a cool video. You got to see the video. I'll run it for you. But I got the wrong version up for you. Live Nation, Ticketmaster, under fire. The Department of Justice is seeking to break up Ticketmaster and its parent company, Live Nation. And a lot of people are applauding because of high ticket prices, lack of competition. So it's been the subject of a lot of consumer complaints, especially in recent years. The two companies reached a crescendo in 2022 when Bruce Springsteen fans were hit with dynamic pricing. In that case, they saw face value tickets costs rise to hundreds of dollars. And then, of course, we saw the big Taylor Swift Eras Tour. And man, were the ticket prices sky high for that. And so it's going to take quite a bit of time before we're likely to see any relief on ticket prices for fans. But this DOJ action is accusing Live Nation of exercising monopoly power over the concert business and related industries, alleging that the company controls about 60% of all concert promotions at major venues and about 80% of ticketing operations through Ticketmaster. So, this is going to result in a pretty heavy-duty legal battle. It's a benchmark case for anti-monopoly suits, and it's the one in the U.S. that similar to the one that was brought against Microsoft. And we've also seen Apple hauled on the carpet as well. So, they've got proprietary software and products that force people to buy Apple products. You buy one Apple product, you kind of have to keep on buying Apple products and so on. So that's playing out in the courts, or will be playing out in the courts as well. Now, the Republican National Committee wants the Secret Service to move protest zones, which are being set up or designated for the upcoming RNC convention later this summer, further away from where the main events are taking place. The RNC sent a letter Thursday, and we're seeing escalating demands by GOP officials to move these planned zones. I think it's because, honestly, we are seeing heightened concerns about what might be happening because of all this stuff going on in the Middle East and in Ukraine, but especially that issue in Gaza. And with Trump and the GOP, and Trump coming out and saying, he's taking a strong pro-Israel position on this, I think he will probably attract some pretty heated, pretty intense protests. So they're concerned about all of that, and especially since seeing that man set himself on fire outside the Trump trial, there is increasing concern about all of this. Everything's getting so weird out there, and you have so much mental illness that I think they are justified in being concerned about it and going to the Secret Service honestly and demanding that more be done to protect not just the former president, but the people who attend as well. Now, back to the education front. Here's a student. This is just a clip out in, I guess, Prince Edward Island here in Canada. There is a student, just a clip here tonight, and I don't have all of the information on this, but I want to run this because he's at a hearing and he's complaining about having to pay more for, he's not a Canadian citizen, he's a foreign student, complaining about having to pay more for post-secondary education in Canada than someone born in Canada. Here, I'll run the clip, and then I'll go to the chat, and I'll just see what you guys have to say about this and what you think about it. Let me bring it up here on the screen. Here we go. So there is a big difference in how much they pay.
And my friends who work from here, he paid $2,500 for same course for 2 semesters for 8 months. How fair is that, sir? This is where I'm coming from, what I paid extra.
Rapinder Pal Singh.
How interesting is that? All together I paid around $30,000 for my tuition. For same schooling fee, a person who is born and raised in Canada paid around $10,000. That $20,000, whether it led me to the countries, but that is not a thing, right? Extra $20,000 for same thing and still suffering. How unfair is that? And my friends who work from here, he paid $2,500 for same course for 2 semesters for 8 months. How fair is that, sir? This is where I'm coming from, what I paid extra. How interesting is that? All together I paid around $30,000 for my tuition. For same schooling fee, a person who is born and raised in Canada paid around $10,000. That $20,000, whether it led me to the countries, but that is not a thing, right? Extra $20,000 for same thing and still suffering. How unfair is that? And my friends who were from here, he paid.
Okay. So what do you guys think? Is that justified? Is that fair? I have some thoughts on it. What do you think? Should foreign students have to pay more, pay the same? Yeah, so Seize the Day says, do they reveal how much taxes they paid to Canada or their families? Choosy says, used to throw open the driver's door of my two-door Nova to get the Transat to kick in. He's talking about pulling donuts. Yeah, me too, man. Let me see here. Rising Dragon says, pretty sad, not fair. Well, I kind of disagree. I'll tell you why in a minute. Magic Moon says, citizenship has benefits. Seize the Day has the violin out. Yeah. Let me go over here and look on the Rumble chat. See what people are saying about it. Foreign students should be paying more, 6590 says. Rosie says, how did they get here and under what pretenses? Promises for citizenship? I think they're just foreign students. I don't know. There are fees to be paid, though. And where's all this money coming from to purchase these tickets? So, yeah, Rosie. Yeah, concert tickets. Yeah. I don't know how people can afford to go, man. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars for tickets to concerts. And, yeah, man, so I think, my opinion, that they should pay more. The reason I think that they should pay more is because we all have been paying taxes all our lives, our families, our parents. If you're a young person and you're going off to university or college, we've all been contributing over a long time to help build up the country, build up the system, build the buildings, build all the, and, buy all the computers and turn the lights on, pour all the concrete, pay all the teachers, get everybody educated so that we have these schools. And so, yes, we have already been contributing by going to work every day and paying our taxes in this country. So if someone from another country wants to come to school here, I don't think it's unfair at all to ask them to pay more. Because if they come here and they go to school, they have not yet contributed to our society by paying taxes. But they're going to get the benefit of the education that they receive here. I don't think it's unfair to do that. And we have so many people even here in Canada who simply can't afford to go to school, to a university or a college to begin with, that I think we could probably be doing more to help people in our own country. And I don't, that goes across the board. There are people from all different walks of life who are not in a position to take advantage of post-secondary education because maybe they have family demands, maybe people sick at home and they're the only breadwinner for their home, or could be anything, single moms, all kinds of different issues that might prevent someone from going to school. So yeah, I think charity begins at home. We need to take care of things here domestically and continue to build prosperity so that we're in a better position to help people abroad. But that's just my personal take on it. And if you've already contributed to something over time, I see taxes as being, or what they should be really, is an investment into your country and your community. And then at various times in life, at different stages, you should be able to access the services that have been put in place by our communities through the actions of our governments, which are supposed to be there acting on our behalf. So I think it's entirely appropriate for people from other countries coming here to get an education to pay just a little bit more, maybe even a lot more, for a quality education. And if they choose to stay here and they become a Canadian citizen and they are contributing and paying taxes at some point, then they get all of the benefits and perks that come with citizenship. And there are perks and benefits to being a citizen in any given country. And that's the way she works. Now, what else do we have for you tonight? We have, oh yes, escalation on the war front. Very, very dangerous situation. And it's a complex issue because we are seeing a lot of rhetoric now and more pressure on the United States to change its position to allow Ukraine to hit targets inside Russia using American weapons. I'll talk about that when we come back after this.
The sharing of biased and
false news has become all too common on social media.
More alarmingly, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals. Defenders of individual rights and freedoms. Credible. Trusted. Grounded in reality. Maverick News. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back, and we've seen, since especially this past weekend, increasing pressure on the United States to change its position to allow Ukraine to use U.S. weapons to strike targets inside Russia. Up until now, that has not been allowed. At least, not supposed to be happening anyway. The reason being, escalation is supposed to be avoided. So, U.S. weapons only supposed to be used inside Ukrainian territory. But on the weekend, Victoria Nuland appeared on, those Sunday morning political talk shows and said that she is now in favor of changing that policy to allow Ukraine to strike targets inside Russia. The reason being that as you get close to the border, Russia is able to set up positions where they fire rockets into Ukrainian territory and strike their targets. And Ukraine is not allowed to fire back because they're in Russian territory. So they have to just sit there and take these hits. At least that's the way it's being described. So here's Newland this past weekend on ABC's. I think this is Meet the Press, but anyway, it's on ABC, and we'll just play this clip.
And help Ukraine push them back.
You have dealt with Vladimir Putin over multiple administrations. When you look at what's happened here and what he is doing, just tell us what you think he is up to, besides the obvious, and what mistakes we have made with Vladimir Putin.
Well, clearly at this point in his life, Vladimir Putin has decided that his legacy is based on restoring at least the Soviet Union, if not a larger empire for Russia. He is defining greatness for Russia in territorial terms rather than in economic or political power. And he's willing to sacrifice the future not only of Ukraine and his relationship with the rest of the world, but of the Russian people for this crazy imperial ambition. You know, I think the COVID period when he was in isolation just made him more and more paranoid, etc. If I had to look at one mistake we made, I think we underestimated what he was willing to do to get to this place that he wanted to get to. For Russia, which is territorial and not political or economic.
Okay. I don't really agree with what she said. I think that you're getting a lot of political spin there. I'm not quite buying that whole spiel, if you will. I'm not buying it. The reason being, I think that from the beginning, Newland and Antony Blinken and Biden, the entire administration, has been, I mean, they're trying to sell the war to people, right? Get public support. I do see the argument that if you are going to be at war with, in this scenario, if you're trying to push one country out of another country and the two countries are side by side, you're really handicapped if you are not able to, if one country is able to sit there and just keep firing rockets from their country into your country and you're not allowed to hit them back. Well, that seems a little bit senseless. And I think, well, the United Kingdom, Britain, they've seen the light on that, I guess, so to speak. And so they have changed their position. They're now committing, I think it's $3 billion something a year, $3.6 billion every year from now on to Ukraine for military aid. Not nearly as much as the United States, but a hefty chunk of change nonetheless. And they've now adopted this position where it says Kyiv can use British weapons inside Russia. This is a BBC report. But this is also getting to be in itself destabilizing. Here, I'll just tell you what this says. It says the UK Foreign Secretary Lord Cameron has said that it is up to Ukraine to decide how to use British weapons and insisted it has the right to strike targets on Russian territory. During a visit to Kyiv, he said the UK would provide $3 billion or $3.75 billion or 3 billion pounds per year for as long as necessary. It says here, just as Russia is striking inside Ukraine, you can quite understand why Ukraine feels the need to make sure it's defending itself, Lord Cameron said. Russia condemned what it called another very dangerous statement. This is a quote from Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, who says this is a direct escalation of tension around the Ukrainian conflict, which would potentially pose a threat to European security. You can see where this is about. So Lord Cameron, it says here, did not directly endorse the idea of British weapons being used to strike targets inside Russia, but until now the UK has generally let it be understood, without spelling it out, that weapons such as the long-range Storm Shadow missile should only be used inside sovereign Ukraine territory. There have been several examples of its successful use in Russian-occupied Crimea, including against elements of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Now, I'm also seeing reports this week that there is another ship that Ukraine claims to have destroyed. And I know that they have been successful in hitting targets, Navy targets, shipping targets. They have made some progress there on the Ukrainian side, but overall, Russian troops, as you've seen from recent headlines, Russia is advancing, and Ukraine has lost ground, and that is being attributed largely to the delay in aid coming from the United States. 6-month delay, or so we are told. Nevertheless, these assessments, which have been telling us over and over and over again that the war is over, it's pretty much lost, not buying it, still not buying it, wasn't buying it a month ago, wasn't buying it 2 months ago. My views on a lot of this have changed because I keep seeing the experts getting it wrong consistently from the beginning, where we were told the war would be over in a matter of days or weeks and then months. It's now dragged on for over 2 years, and I think when we keep hearing these assertions that the war is going to be over with imminently, I'm not buying it. There's more money flowing. The arms are still going in there, and while they may have lost some ground, it looks to me like the West is determined to prop up the Ukraine military and continue pushing on with this thing. So unfortunately, I think we're in for more bloodshed. Russia not sitting still on this, though, not taking any of this lightly. Vladimir Putin, I guess, coming out and basically laying it on the line. Here's a report, just a post on X by BRICS News, saying Russia warns United Kingdom targets will be struck if British weapons are used by Ukraine to strike Russian territory. So this complicates things, doesn't it? Yes, indeed. Now, what we're hearing then is, even though you have maybe Russian fortifications, Russian locations where they're be able to fire into Ukraine, we're being told that if UK weapons are used, and we're seeing these kind of statements saying they may well be used to strike Russian targets inside Russian territory with UK weapons, then UK targets will be targeted and hit by Russia. What does that mean exactly? I don't know. But it doesn't sound good. Now you have major escalation. Now you're going to hit a NATO country. Russia would hit a NATO country. What would that mean? That maybe invokes Article 5. That means you get all of NATO involved. You attack one NATO member, you attack all NATO members. If the United States provides weapons and allows Ukraine to use them, will Putin take the same position? Would they then target U.S. assets someplace? What would they do? Would you then have Russia firing on U.S. ships somewhere around the world? I don't know. But it's obviously very, very, very destabilizing. This rhetoric alone is destabilizing. It's not looking good. This is also why I said the other day, you don't threaten to use nuclear weapons when you're winning. As much as Russia, and this is my assessment and my opinion for what it's worth, and I've never been in the military, but I have been in the political game for quite a while as a journalist. And so it's pretty clear to me that while Russia may be making gains on the ground in Ukraine, overall, it's just a war of attrition and a grinding down over time. And it's a bloody, brutal war from what I'm seeing. And politically and strategically, it's much more complicated than just what you're seeing on with regard to physical gains on the ground inside Ukraine. Because as much as Russia may be gaining some ground in Ukraine, they're now seeing additional pressure placed on Russia itself. Potential pressure even, and political pressure. And now this influx of new aid that is coming online and more weapons arriving. So it's far from over. And Russia now is facing potentially the threat of attack, increased threat of attack inside Russian-controlled territory and Russia proper, from maybe with NATO weapons by Ukraine. Some would say, as some say that if you're going to supply the intelligence, supply the weapons, supply the strategies, the training, if you're going to supply everything except maybe boots on the ground, and even that's in question to some degree, then you're basically at war. And I think we're just about pretty much there. Also seeing that, now I was getting some information from Kevin over in Crimea about missile attacks and so forth. And there we go. Oh, here. And yeah, I think he's asleep. There were reports of missile strikes in some areas that apparently are fake. So that's not true. Reports of massive missile strikes on Yalta and Alushta. They're fake. The videos were recorded 2 months ago that are out there apparently, according to the information I'm getting here from Kevin. And it says those videos are 2-month-old videos taken outside Sevastopol. So whatever you're seeing online in that regard, not real, apparently. And that would be verifiable. And also, what else are we getting in here tonight from Crimea? Ukrainian armed forces fired at least 16 missiles into Crimea, some of them launched from the Odessa region. Also, about 4 UAVs arrived from the direction of Ukraine, and they were moving from the direction of the urban village of Cheplinki, Kherson region. And Russian authorities are saying that 2 bystanders were killed during the attack in the Simferopol region. And there are reports, and I don't know, we'd have to verify this, of a reconnaissance drone that is American circling the area around the Black Sea. So those are some of the reports from that side that we're getting tonight. That information, again, take everything you're getting with a grain of salt, but there seems to be some credibility, real credibility to that info tonight. Let's take another break. We'll come back on the other side and continue with today's top news stories.
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarmingly, some media outlets publish these things simply aren't true without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
In an ocean of lies a century deep, the truth awaits. Choose not the red pill. Choose not the blue pill. For both are an illusion. Discover the power of M. The power of individuality. We are mavericks. We are the way to the light. Fear not the storm. Join our quest for truth. Truth will set you free. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so I don't do a lot of entertainment news, but this isn't so much entertainment as it is about tourism, the economy, culture. This is about a video that has gone viral on social media from an online influencer called Jenny Nicholson. She produced a 4-hour-long video about the spectacular failure of the Star Wars Hotel, a Disney epic failure. She stepped aboard the Galactic Star Cruiser experience and shared her Star Wars story online. She was there for 2 days and 2 nights, and she chronicles the whole thing and explains why the whole thing is being shut down. She investigates this resort, well, at Walt Disney World Resort Star Wars themed hotel. It's also like a live action role play experience, and it shut down after just 18 months. What an incredible failure. It was supposed to be like an immersive experience and super expensive. A couple of days there cost you about like $6,000. And you would expect the thing to be like epic, right? So her video, I think it's received now over 3.7 million views. A lot of interest in Star Wars. Disney taking over the Star Wars franchise some years back from Lucasfilm. And I think that they've kind of wrecked it. To be honest, I don't watch any of it anymore. I think this is a lesson on how to destroy a franchise There's way too much of it out there now, and the storylines are too woke, and I just don't, maybe I'm just getting too old. But, you know, I was a kid when Star Wars came out in 1977. What an incredible experience that was. And I remember people would go to see Star Wars in the 70s and line up. I went for an entire summer. I went almost every single week to watch Star Wars at the movie theater, at least once a week. I don't know if anybody else went through that weird phase, but yeah, to go see that single movie over and over and over and over and over and over again. And then it became a competition between all my friends. How many times have you seen Star Wars? I've seen it like 67 times. I go every week for the last year and a half. Well, these youngsters and oldsters alike went to check this thing out. And, well, I'm going to play a little clip now of the review, and she'll explain here why the whole thing kind of fell apart. Now, this gives you a little taste, but this is a 4-hour-long video, so you might want to go and check out the whole thing if you have 4+ hours to spare.
So, no, it doesn't really seem to me like the Galactic Star Cruiser was always part of the plan intended as a complement to Galaxy's Edge. It seems to me like they had fully planned out Galaxy's Edge and logistically figured out the technology and budget it needed. And then someone internally seems to have said, wait, what if we just take away all the coolest parts and put them in a big locked building, and to get into that building, people have to give us a lot more money?
I think the depth of storytelling, the amount of play, the amount of engagement that a person is going to experience, I don't think you're going to question the cost. I actually think you're just going to have a lot of fun.
I also find it notable that the Disney parks used to have a popular interactive children's show called Jedi Training Academy, which predated...
So what she's saying here is that Disney used to just have a lot of add-ons or experiences, things that you would just pay your ticket price, right, to get into the theme park, and then you would just have the experience, and these things would just be part of the admission price. But what she's saying is what the hotel was about, the Star Wars hotel, is they kind of took these things that were in the park and then put them all in a hotel and created a theme, and you're not supposed to, as part of this experience, you're supposed to just stay in the hotel, and then they charge you extra for all of these things that you experience at the hotel. So stuff that you might have otherwise had in the theme park, now you're paying a premium price for, and Disney was trying to find a way to charge for add-ons, and that made everything extremely expensive.
Even the opening of Galaxy's Edge. Kids would put on little robes and be handed training lightsabers, run through a number of drills, and then face off against a dark side opponent. Kids liked to do it, and adults liked to watch it because it was cute. The last remaining version of that show was canceled in June 2020, probably due to the pandemic, but even after Disney World started relaxing all its COVID precautions, the show never returned. Months later, the experience disappeared altogether from the website, and in July of 2022, they quietly removed all physical signage from the park. And so I think it's interesting that here we see a similar experience, again moved behind the paywall of the Galactic Star Cruiser. This isn't only a pattern in the Star Wars part of the parks either. This has become the new philosophy of the Disney theme parks. More and more amenities that used to be free are now being put behind paywalls. I told you about the M-bands earlier and how they've had this technology at the hotels for a while. Well, you used to get a Magic Band free with a hotel booking to use as your room key, but now they make you buy them. The Fast Pass system used to be free, now it costs extra, and it doesn't include every ride anymore. The good rides are a la carte. You have to buy those separately. Meanwhile, lines keep getting longer and longer because now that Disney can monetize long lines, corporate actually wants them to be long. The Fast Passes actually have variable pricing, which is updated live in the app, so the longer the lines are, the more they can charge. And of course, they oversell the Fast Passes because now they have an incentive to do so, so those lines aren't even actually short anymore. They fire all the atmosphere entertainment and close all the little diversions because they'd rather everybody just pile into those lines, because the longer the lines, the more they can charge. Why build new rides? Why increase capacity? It's actually better for your bottom line if you don't anymore. Why do anything above the bare minimum? Ride photos used to be free for pass holders, now they cost extra. Buses from the airport used to be free for Disney hotel guests, now they cost extra. Even the baskets of free bread they used to bring out at the expensive restaurants, now you have to buy those as an appetizer. So that's the dirty secret behind the Galactic Star Cruiser. It wasn't an idea conceived to explore a new frontier in immersive experiences. It was just a lot of ideas they already had already promised us, some which they had already implemented, which were then taken away, paywalled. It wasn't driven by curiosity or inspiration. It was born of pure greed.
All right. And there's a woke corporation that had an epic fail with what could have been like a super cool, tourist experience, but it just failed after 18 months, and now you're hearing why. Go check out her full-length video. She's Jenny Nicholson. That video is going viral. 3.7 million views since May 18th. That's when it was first posted. So it's gone viral. And a lot of truth being spoken there that probably Disney doesn't want you to hear about. Oh well. I'm probably the only person who ever went to Disney and didn't really enjoy it. I really didn't like it. I don't know. Everybody after I came out of there, I just had It's a Small World After All playing over and over and over and over in my head. I couldn't get it out. It was driving me nuts. And I found it to be very expensive too. So, oh, Rick, you're so negative. I know. But that's me. That's just me and Disney. What else do I have for you? That's kind of about it. The only other thing I wanted to talk about briefly tonight was this thing about the head transplants. It's going viral tonight too. Brain Bridge. Some people taking this pretty seriously. It is, folks. It's just it's a video, okay? It's not real. Now, Neuralink, that's a real thing. Elon Musk is really doing that with Neuralink. And a lot of this is being, I think fueled by the Neuralink craze. We've got some internet issues here. The video is not wanting to cooperate. I've got a little bit of it I was going to play for you. Oh, for crying out loud, I hate it when it does this. Let's just re-cue it. Here we go. Now I've lost it. So I let Brain Bridge. Okay, so this is like sort of predicting the future and having artificial intelligence and robotic surgeons I just see some breaking news coming in here. It's more local. It's police in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, investigating the possible drowning deaths of 2 individuals in the area of Sandpoint Beach in the 10,000 block of Riverside Drive East. So that's a breaking story for you tonight if you are living in that part of Canada. Let me just get this video again. Here it is, the head transplant video. I'll just run a little bit of it for you. Have you seen it? Anybody see this thing? This Brain Bridge video? I mean, it's well produced. Here. I'm not going to let the music run or the audio because I don't want to get a copyright strike. But it's like, okay, they're putting the head on the heads on the bodies. So the idea here is that human brains, they say, are probably good for 300 years. So if they put if your body wears out but your brain's still good, they'll put you onto a new body if they can find a suitable donor body. Boy, does that raise ethical issues, right? And they talk about the technology that might be used, but this is science fiction, folks. Don't take this, honestly, don't take this seriously. It's like not happening right now. Maybe sometime in the future, and we did see, I ran that report of there was actually a doctor who wanted to do the world's first human head transplant. And there was a guy who was signed up to do this, apparently. He was interviewed on the Piers Morgan show at one point. But it didn't happen. The guy backed out. Probably wisely so. Even though he had some health issues that were motivating him to do it. He wound up finding a girlfriend and a better quality of life than he ever expected he was going to have. So he just decided not to get his head transplanted onto another body or whatever. Anyway, as much as we're talking about a head transplant operation here, I have to tell you that my brain gets baked just looking at it, and the ethical issues, the moral implications, the social ramifications just blow your mind when you begin to even just think about who should have access to it. Is this something only for the rich? How does it affect public health care, socialized health care, universal social health care? A lot of issues that would raise in the future if it does come to be a reality. Now, the truth of the matter is, if you damage your spinal cord today and you're paralyzed, they can't fix it. So I don't know how that technology is supposed to be realistic. And they make it sound like it's something that's viable, or maybe that the technology is even available to do it today. But when I hear them say things like they're going to use polyethylene glycol, which is what the narrator makes reference to, in order to, in the process of reattaching your spinal column, spinal cord, I have to wonder what's going on. I mean, they talk about lowering the temperature of your body and your brain to very low temperatures to preserve it so you don't get brain damage during the transfer process. But you know what polyethylene glycol is? It's a laxative, okay? That's what you take before you have a colonoscopy. That's what they'll put PEG or polyethylene glycol into different kinds of laxatives. It's also used in antifreeze that goes into your car. That's what it's used for there as well, a version of it. So I don't know why they talked about that in the video. Maybe it would serve some useful purpose, but I think they just threw, honestly, from the way it was scripted, it just seemed to me like they were throwing out this long name, which sounded pretty scientific, but in reality, that's what polyethylene glycol is. I picked up on it right away. So great science fiction, but today's science fiction could be tomorrow's science fact. Who knows? Anything is possible. Now, I know we showed Donald Trump, I think I still have it here, earlier in the broadcast in the Bronx. And I had I hope I still have it for you here. This is a great one. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? Come on, I don't want to lose it now. Oh, I hope I have it. So many things to share with you tonight. Maybe it got closed off. I really wanted to share this video with you. Oh, let me take a real quick break. I'll try and get it queued up for you. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Don't go away.
Hello, world. Are you awake? Uniting humankind by liberating millions of minds at a time. Maverick News. The world is watching.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now, at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program, for your mind.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, I think I've got it here for you. If I can make it go full screen. I don't know if I can make it go full screen. If not, I'm just picking it up off another social media site here. Oh, come on. I don't like it over here. This isn't actually the version of it that I wanted to show you, but this is pretty good anyway. So let me just, I'll wait till it queues up again. And here we go. Starting again. You maybe have seen this before, but I just think it's hilarious. Here's Trump and Biden. Anyway, I just wanted to share it with you tonight because I actually ran that before, but I love that one, so I'm sharing it with you. There was that other video out there too of Biden falling down, and they made the song to go with it, and it's been banned. It's been taken down, I think, off YouTube and Facebook. So you have to go over to X to see that one, or maybe on Rumble. I'm not going to run it here. I don't have it, but I offer you that just as a way to close off the show tonight. I appreciate you guys hanging out here with me tonight. It's been a slice, and I will be back tomorrow night, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, here on the Maverick News Network, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind. Catch you tomorrow on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.